This is the Beanee Weenee Show. We're your hosts. My name is Dominique Dennis,
I'm Edward Black.
and we're here to talk to you today about generational trauma and also the effect that your role in your family has on you and your mental health. Something that I noticed from a lot of the stuff that I was looking at, like articles from the CPTSD, um, even from College of the Aces, and just from interviews from different people, was that a lot of the time, the first problems that people experience are actually within their immediate family members and almost always with their parents. This kind of idea that you have to be better than your parents were, right? And this idea stems from a lack of attention, of love, some feeling that they missed out on something from these adults in their lives. Most notably, fathers, especially father figures, whether it was being at work too often, not being around enough, being controlling. It was just this idea that a lot of the time the issues stem from the fathers, which would also cause issues with their mother as well. What kind of, how do you think that dysfunctional family structures affect children?
Um, I think it affects like their mental health a lot, and also in school, like also being in school in like class, and also going home to a dysfunctional family affects them very much on the mental side, and especially if they don't have like proper ways to express themselves or communicate with what they go through at home. And I think going home to that as well, like it's just definitely not good for the mental health. And with one of my sources, I researched APA, the American Psychological Association. It speaks a lot about brain chemistry and how it changes it, being like not being able to express yourself and going home to a dysfunctional family and community where it's just not a good area to be surrounded by while growing up and developing yourself. Um, it makes it so you're not like you don't properly cope, and it's just like you have issues in some situations where it is more chaotic and you need de-escalation. The person doesn't properly react due to them constantly seeing what was around them, and due to their such young age, what they see is kind of what they think is normal. um, they can't properly they can de-escalate, but it's not as likely due to their surroundings.
Right, like they're less, like they're non-confrontational, or they don't know how to respond in those situations.
Hmm.
It's like when they want to fix what's going on, they really don't know how to respond because the way that they grew up, it was just, like speak when spoken to kind of thing.
Yeah, and constantly being belittled to where you feel like you can't talk, and what you do say is wrong, and it's just there's a point where there's no winning, um, and I don't feel like that's all on the parents. Like, in a sense, yes, it is on the parents because they are the one doing that, but also if you look prior before them, they probably had a similar situation, and they grew up and thinking that was normal, so they thought they should do that. And also due to their trauma, it could have been something more severe, and they found that as an escape, and it's kind of just a result of their situation. Or in community, like being forced into certain communities, and like not forced into certain communities, but in the sense of you're not really like you don't have equitable opportunities.
I would definitely say for some of the people that I was interviewing, one person in specific, I would really agree with that statement because the only way that they felt they could really um, succeed or like get out of their situation was through academic validation, finding their way into a name brand high level university outside of New Mexico. Uh, so they ended up working full time from junior year up until senior year, and before that, they were still volunteering, trying to do everything that they can to build a good portfolio and make it out of New Mexico. And they ended up with over a 4.0 GPA while being the student body president at their school. And a lot of that pressure that they faced was because of being the firstborn daughter of two immigrant parents, right, and also having to help raise her siblings. So it's these kinds of things that like lead people down roads where they feel like they have to act one sort of way, like their
Was a first
position in your family,
generation
their role in your family, their
immigrant,
responsibilities
and
really fit what
she
they end up
was
wanting to do.
she was
If they
passed
feel
around a
like they
lot of
have control over
schools.
their situation, in
She
this case, they
then my
felt that they
grandparents were
couldn't.
constantly moving, and
Um,
they really
I
just
I
kind
most
of
definitely agree with you,
weren't
and I kind of
financially
have,
stable.
a
They
connection
didn't
with
have
that
much
through
food all the
family.
time. And my mom found her escape is through school programs and just being like very academically stable and just having those perfect grades and graduating early and just going past grades. And I think that was a result of like her parents and my grandparents just having to constantly move and having to constantly work and dealing with like how immigration is in this country. um, she really felt like she needed to help and provide, and she wanted to find herself. And now I kind of live with that. She doesn't like, she wants me to have good grades, and she doesn't pressure me too much. She just worries about me more, now that I communicate with her. And she tries to make sure that I have fun at school and have a good time and make solid friends, because whenever she was in school, she was going through different schools and had to make new friends, and she wasn't able to really make close friends. And she didn't want that for me, so she allows me to choose what school I wanted to go to. And that's why I went to Monzano, because most of the people at Monzano I was closer to and I wanted to stay with instead of other schools. And she's just really trying to make a better life for me. Although there was most definitely issues due to family issues, like a divorce. It was harder, kind of difference, because when I was younger, my mom was definitely not the same as she is now. And same with my dad. He went through a lot in his childhood. That's something that he has a lot of trauma. He grew up in where a gang affiliated area, but he didn't take a part in that, and he had a lot of situations where he was risked, his life was risked, and same with his family, and also my grandma, his mom, would abuse him, and it was a lot of abuse. It was meant like emotional abuse and physical. Like, she would use abusive language and abusive physically. And I mean, now he's bipolar, and that connects back with APA. With a lot of people that deal with situation and traumas like that, it does result in bipolar disorder, and also just other things wrong with, well, not necessarily wrong, but harder for them to properly deal with their emotions, and that gets put onto their kid, which was me. I had to deal with a lot, and it's just shown through a lot of research through Bennett, like university, and APA. I mean, it goes on than more than just one or two generations. It goes on for many generations, and kind of another thing that with one of my interviews with one of the teachers at her school, her grandmother was in Japan during World War II, and she came here and really didn't bring any of her life from Japan, just stories, but she wanted to create a new life here and new opportunities, and she wanted her kids and grandchildren to really not take things for granted and love who they're with. And yeah,
I definitely understand that. Like, the way that you grow up definitely has a lot of effects on you as well. I think that the order of your birth as well, if you have siblings especially, or even if you don't have siblings, like that in itself causes its own issues. Like, for example, the youngest children in some of my interviews felt that they had no pressure on them, whereas the youngest children, or some other younger children, felt that they had immense amounts of pressure because all of their older siblings had messed up in some way. The oldest sibling, more often than not, felt that they had to be the example for their younger siblings, having better grades, being the bigger person whenever anything happened, taking care of them.
Right.
And a lot of the time, only children felt that their bloodline, almost in a sense, was kind of reliant on them succeeding, especially those that came from lower income areas.
Um, I could definitely connect with what you're saying because me as the youngest, um, I, me myself, I kind of with my parents, I kind of felt like they were never proud of me, but now I mean I feel proud of myself, and now they kind of say it more that they're proud of me, and it's kind of different from what you're saying, and from for the youngest child feeling like they don't have as much pressure, but I feel like that connects with everything. Like I mean, a lot of the things we say, there's two sides to it. I mean, you know, ah,
Yeah, I'm the youngest of 10 in my family actually, and I will be the first one to attend university at the correct time or the usual time, right? Immediately after high school. Um, my siblings, my oldest brother, he ended up graduating high school, joining the military. He went into the army. My oldest sister, she ended up getting pregnant before ever graduating. So these kinds of things where they had to go back and fix something that they had messed up. My oldest brother had his own problems. My oldest sister ended up going back, getting her GED, and then figuring out a college education well into her 30s. Now she's a teacher. She's a professor, actually, at a university in Washington State. But because of the way that my siblings, whether it's on my dad's side or my mom's side, the way that they went through life and their kind of screw ups affected the way that my parents treated me when I was growing up. Something that I wanted to do since I was a very young child was be a surgeon. And not just because I found interest in being a physician. I did, and I truly wanted to do that. Reading anatomy, or even just being in science classes like biology, was where I felt very comfortable and really like myself. But the reason that I originally wanted to do that is because I was forced into that way of thinking from my mother and my father. Right, the stereotypical Asian parent saying, "You need to become a doctor," right? Which was my mom, who grew up in the Philippines. So it's like the things that you do within your family kind of affect the way that you end up as a person. I feel
yeah,
like my siblings, while they're far from well off, aren't homeless, but they're not where they could be, and they're kind of in the same social class that they left, and maybe even a little bit lower than that. And it's the same way for many other families. Just the way that you're treated by your parents and your expectations, your comparisons to siblings. It just makes you feel that you have to succeed somewhere.
yeah,
And a lot of the time that happens because parents want what's best for their child,
yeah,
but they end up bringing those toxic traits back from their past, like you were talking about, like that kind of generational trauma, bringing it from one to another. There's one quote that I had heard. It's that if there was an angry man in the house when you were growing up, there will always be an angry man in the house. And I feel like that's kind of what we're experiencing. If there's failure in the home, then what we see is parents projecting that fear of failure onto their kids, right? Which is why we have so many people that end up regretting the degree choice, or end up regretting going to grad school, or that end up stopping being a doctor or being a lawyer when only a few years into their career, right? Often before they even become established and actually start making money because of the pressure that they felt as children.
So with what I saw with what you're saying about living with it, like with the idea of being in the boundaries of generational trauma from childhood and living with your parents, and with the trauma that they have as well, um, I really tied it back to my novel I read, um, Beloved. Um, in the book, the main character Seeth, she was a slave and she had a baby, and the, her owners were going like just oppressing her, and she just felt in danger, and she had her baby in her arms, and she felt like she needed to go hide from them, and she killed her kid after that because she was in fear of what they were gonna do and make her child go through and live through. And I really tie that to how society, like how us as people, some of us are scared of society and the norms that are brought into society due to generational trauma. Um, and in the book, it really goes in depth for trying to provide a better future. And like our parents are trying to provide us a better future and something different from what they had gone through. And now we want to learn from that as well and provide better for our children. And I think it's a cycle, but it's a cycle you could break and change, um, and create a better society. Um, and this is shown in one of my sources, IU Health. They really talk and go in depth on breaking the cycle of childhood experiences. And it's more on the idea of trying to create better for the future. It goes on more of the mental side and how it affects how a person thinks. But um, the the what it's really trying to go at is creating better for the future, and um, creating a better society and not living in poverty and having equal opportunities.
Yeah, there's actually a idea called movement in sociology or mobility, and it goes vertical, horizontally. But essentially, what it is the movement between social classes and through society, right? Vertical movement being what I really want to focus on, given that you're talking about like these different things, like trying to make a better society through your children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Vertical mobility occurs when someone either moves up or down the social ladder. So from impoverished to middle class, from middle class to upper class, from upper class to middle class, like any
Mm-hmm.
way up or down. And a lot of the time, what people want for their children is to have them move up, right? They want positive vertical mobility rather than negative vertical mobility. They want their
Mm-hmm.
children to do better than they did. So they push these ideas onto them that end up being harmful and create toxic environments for their kids, which lead to things like depression, anxiety, um, and a lot of the time, I think that parents over or underestimate the effect of what they're doing to their
Mm-hmm.
children by putting so much pressure onto them.
Yeah. Um, I totally agree with you, and I tie that back to what we said earlier with living with the expectations that we hold on ourselves due to our parents, and we feel like we have to just go up that ladder in with what you're saying, and that sometimes, just like you said, it hurts us because we have to constantly put ourselves to these expectations, and sometimes it hurt us because we feel like we're not enough, or we're just not doing enough, you know. And yeah, I think what you just said was great because I mean it shows a lot with what we hold in ourselves.
Yeah, and again, I think that one of the other things that really gets like messes people up is this idea of like again perfection, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nuclear families, for example. Whenever you think of a lot of the people, for a lot of people, when you hear nuclear, you think of uranium, you think of Los Alamos, you think of the Manhattan Project. But what a nuclear family is that picture perfect family, mom in the picture, dad in the picture, white picket fence house, a dog, that kind of thing where everything just seems so perfect. And again, what a lot of parents strive for is for their children to have this, right? And even when people see nuclear families like next to them, they don't consider the problems that they might have at home and what they're actually doing to like solve these problems. They only see half the picture, right?
Yeah.
You see a doctor who's successful and established and renowned, and you want that for your kid, but you don't think about the immense pressure that comes with medical school, that comes with having to watch people die on a daily basis, that comes with having to get to know children and having to watch them pass. So it's those kinds of things that really take people away from, like, almost take them away from reality, right? They only see so much, so then they think that the grass is greener on the other side, when in reality the grass was the same color, if not worse.
Yeah, I mean, tying with you, with how we don't always see everything, and I think it's more of an internal thing and at home. So kind of what you don't see. So with what I think of is the idea from one of the articles you read in AP Lang last year was about how education is structured to kill creativity, and how within ourselves, what could kill us from being ourselves and being as creative as we should be is us holding ourselves to these expectations, and those expectations are brought from family and us having to deal with the things we do, and that's what really could kill us from being, like as previously said, those doctors. And no one's saying that those doctors have gone through that, you know. A lot of things you see in community and in society is hidden, and a lot of people don't recognize that, and I think that's why generational trauma continues. Is communication and understanding isn't valued, and also it's just not shown a lot, and I think that stops from us being as great as we can be.
Yeah, I know for me personally, up until my freshman year of high school, I was actually a straight A student. The reason I had stopped being a straight A student was because of the expectations that were placed on me. Not because my parents expected me to go to medical school and become a doctor, but actually because my parents wanted me to stay in state and go to UNM. So then, at that point, I just given up on trying to be like an overachiever and just going or getting grades to get through high school so then I could go to UNM, because UNM doesn't have a high GPA requirement. It's not very competitive to get in, and opportunity scholarship applies to you as long as you have a 2.5 or higher in college. So I stopped caring about my high school grades for the longest time. But I think that's about all the time we have, guys. Thanks for coming into the Beanie Weenie show.